What's up, guys? We are going to be taking a look at Mythic Sark from a Resto Druid perspective, and I'm going to be kind of breaking down my thought process, my decision making, where and when I use my cooldowns, and why I use them, and kind of talking about any tips you guys might want to know before you start prog, or even as you're progging. First things first, I think there's a few different ways you can play this cooldowns on this fight. I feel really confident in my way being the best, but obviously, it depends on your guild, right? And where your guild uses cooldowns, so you might have to be willing to adjust, but I'll still explain why I think my cooldowns are the best as we kind of go through the fight. First point as well, this is a pre-ramp fight, meaning that you're going to want to start the fight with 2 out of 3 charges on Reforestation, and you're also going to want to spend time just regrowthing or rejuvening the raid as much as possible, and then drinking in between it. I take the extra Enervate on this fight, so I don't actually need to start the fight at full mana. I think I started here like 90%. If you don't have this extra Enervate, then I would definitely be playing a little bit more conservative with my mana, and I would definitely be trying to drink as much as possible to start the fight at full mana. But you see here, I don't care because I have so much extra resources. So the common strategy for this fight is that the range are going to Warlock Gateway in after they drop the bombs out here in ranged. This doesn't really work for a Druid because we're going to be Convoking. If you Gateway during Convoke, it will cancel your Convoke. So what you should do is you should start off to the right of the range group. Give them enough space that if it were to target you, it wouldn't kill them. And if it targets you, you just move right. You just walk right and then you walk in. On this pull, it doesn't actually target me, so it doesn't matter. I just walk in, but had it targeted me, I would have just walked right and given them room. I could also walk left, I guess, in Gateway, but if the first one doesn't target me, that's kind of sketchy, so it's just safe to just walk right. And then obviously pop your cooldowns here, your ramp, and then I just spam regrowth. Pretty simple stuff. This ramp is definitely good as a Druid. It's a high value, you do good healing, and then obviously it's free healing. I'm still 90% mana. And then also nature vigil damage. So letting your Druid do this is really, really good. Just gets good damage on the boss, and it just gets the very, very efficient healing. One other thing about this fight is that in phase 1, you're probably going to want to cancel your Reforestation. I do it. I get to 2 out of 3, then I cancel. Just to squeeze in a few extra Soul of the Forest wild growths. If anyone needs a dispel because they get too many stacks, you can single dispel them. I try to avoid it. It's generally like I'd rather just heal through it. I'd rather heal through like 1 stack, but if someone gets 2 or 3, you could dispel them. So here I cancel my Reforestation, Swiftmend Wild Growth. If you are really tight on mana and you have the opportunity, it's really good here to kind of get regrowths out, but it can be hard at times depending on like the bomb baits plus the circles. Sometimes the circles are going to spawn all around you and you can't get cast off, and that's okay. If that happens, you're just going to be rejuving. But that's an easy spot where you can save mana there. I like to also use my Enervate when this F-flow is expiring. I don't actually use it here. I misplay. And I end up wasting some of my F-flow uptime. If I had it unmuted, you would hear me kind of complaining about how I made that mistake. But regardless, I just Enervate here, and I'm just trying to get as many rejuves as possible out. Even though my Flourish is on a 22-second cooldown, I'm okay with some of these rejuves expiring before I ramp because I just want to give myself as many chances at proccing Luxury and Soil as possible, right? So the more rejuves I have out for longer, the higher chances we actually get procs. Like if some of these rejuves I did early, right? Even if they expire, if they channel their full duration and they get a proc halfway through it, that procced rejuve will be up for my ramp, right? And then maybe it procs another rejuve and so on and so on. But this ramp is definitely going to be a little bit late because of the Flourish timing. So I'll kind of explain it as it happens, but you kind of want to just send your Convoke as the damage is happening. You don't want to be late because it is so intense. I get the perfect timing here, and you'll see that there's about a second or 2 left on my Flourish. In general, when it's tight like this, I'll try to regrowth whoever's low HP to make sure they don't die, which in my case I knew was kind of the Rogue, the Warlock, and then our Evoker. I'll try to look for like regrowths on them. Here it's so tight, it's a second, that I just start mashing Flourish to get it off cooldown as much as possible. You can kind of see me itching to press it. Yep. And then I trank immediately after, just in case anyone's low from the final damage. Especially if you get bad procs, then people are going to be lower health, so you get more value out of the trank. But otherwise, I'm just spamming Rejuve and trying to get Rejuves on everyone before we get downstairs. I Swiftmend, I Wild Growth as we're about to go downstairs. And then I Roar for everyone. I have full hot, so everyone's pretty safe here. No one's going to ever really die to that end damage. Same when you're in this phase, just don't greed at all. I've seen so many people just die here, and it can be kind of cringe. This is such an easy phase that you should never really be dying. Don't greed your stacks. Don't greed your portals. Just do it safely. You'll progression faster, and you'll look like a better player. I run forward as well. I just run forward straight ahead, and I've never had my portals be bad. Some people like don't get far enough, or they look a weird direction, and their portals are in weird places. If you played it how I just played it, it's going to be completely fine 99% of the time. The 1% of the time it's not fine is when someone drops a bad pool. If someone were to drop a pool here, obviously it's going to be much harder, but it's still doable. So when you're in this phase, and I talk about don't greeding, always get your portals. If someone drops a pool in the center of your portal, get that portal early, right? Sacrifice the haste and make sure that you don't feed, because the most important thing to progression is that you don't have bad deaths, right? And a death like that is really, really bad. So never greed. Just get your portal safely. If it's safe like this, I get 10 stacks and it's great, right? But that's not always going to be possible. So just play safe and stay alive. Because this is a haste buff, I also call for Innervate instantly here, so I don't accidentally burn through half my mana. And I'm just ramping early again. Luxury and Soil. You know the deal. I end up misplaying this ramp a little bit. I should have delayed it by a second or two, my Convoke. I did a second too early. In a perfect world, I'm channeling the Convoke while being in the air from the knockback. But I did it too early. It's a slight misplay. It's not at the end of the world because we don't need this healing desperately. But it definitely is a misplay, something I need to improve. Or I would have liked to improve, rather. And this phase is pretty chill. You can save mana a lot in this phase if you're not getting an extra Innervate by just not really casting here. Because I'm getting so many resources, or I guess so many, I'm getting the extra Innervate, I'm playing a little bit aggressively. I will say as well, talking about mana, I use instant mana pots. So I'll pop one in phase 1 and then I'll use one at the end of the fight. And that is much easier to do because finding a time to sit specifically, in any of these phases, you're going to struggle to find a time to sit. Like maybe here you could sit, but you'd have to cancel it because of bombs. And I think there's one time, like as soon as you get in this phase, I think you can Sleepy Pot, but then you're not going to have a ramp for the Convoke, or your ramp on the Convoke will be weaker. So it's really your decision, but I think instant mana pots are just much easier to use and they're simple. And then here again, just ramping super early for my Luxury and Soil procs. This is kind of the only other dangerous moment of the fight just because people are getting their stacks kind of high. You see some people with 4, 5 stacks. Plus, there's a knockback happening, so that's really the only damage you take in this fight. Otherwise, it's pretty chill. So I send everything here. I also try to make sure that I have healing on the Warlocks because they're doing bombs, so they can be a little bit scared at times. This Convoke, or I'm sorry, this Trank, you can try to use it to immune the knockback. I generally do, but it kind of just depends on timing. Here, I didn't get the knockback immune. I would have preferred to, but it's not the end of the world. You just get knocked. And then you kind of go back to place. You never want to greed this again. You never greed for cast. You do this when he calls to go down, when the weaker is gone, you go down. You don't overthink it. You don't try to do too much. You just do what you're supposed to. Again, we just don't greed. I get my puddles early so that I kind of know how many I have. Some people will like accidentally run through a portal and not realize, and then they'll die, which I think again is super cringe. You should have an eye on it at all times. So like there, some people would just run through it instantly, right? Which is definitely a mistake. I will say that I always try to look at it. I turn around, you'll see I count 3 portals, so I know that I'm safe, right? That I didn't accidentally take one, and then I don't accidentally come up early and die. You could stand in this circle, doesn't matter. Then you wait to come down. Again, we have the haste buff, so I am innervating myself instantly. And this is where you can do a little bit of different things with your ramps. The way that I ended up playing it is that I kind of just went for a Convoke without Flourish ramp. Mainly you have the haste buff for the ramps, so you can get a lot of rejuves out. And then you can just put it on cooldown in this phase. What you could do is you could opt to flourish the knockback. I've seen people do that. That's one thing you can do. I was doing it on early prog, and then I realized that it just wasn't really going to work. And I like this new strat a lot better. We still have Hots up. Get the Convoke off. So it would be this. I would get knocked back, and then I would Convoke Flourish. I mean, and it's good value, right? Like, we're in danger here after this knock. But the generally accepted strategy for this fight now is that you go down pretty late. And you have a lot of stacks. You're going to be taking a lot of rot damage. So what I had to do is I had to realize, okay, I'm not going to be able to flourish here. I need my flourish 30 seconds later. So I fit the Convoke in between. And now I'm ramping on my Convoke timer. And you'll see as I do this ramp, we're in a lot of danger, right? It is, if I don't do the ramp and I do not do it well, we are going to die. So it's also really important. I'm pre-ramping. I pre-ramp 25 seconds in advance here, right? Right now I'm called for the innervate, and I'm ramping so far in advance to just try to high roll as many luxury and soil procs as possible. I just want as good RNG as possible because we need to live. Some people like to do this ramp a little bit later. I don't think that's good though. I think how I do the ramps is best, mainly because we get 2 flourishes in the last phase at really good times. And obviously, this is a really tight damage fight. Your damage matters. So if you can get 2 flourishes doing decent damage, like, that matters for sure. So I'm ramping as much as possible, trying to get those reges out. We're kind of stable here, but you'll see that as soon as I go into Incarn, we start getting absolutely railed. So if my ramp was any later, it would be really scary. Right, like we are on the verge of death here. So this ramp is what allows us to kind of stabilize. We have a him going at the same time, so my healing is even being buffed, and then we stabilize. Without my ramp, like, we're dead, right? We could obviously move cooldowns, but I just think right there, I'm doing insane healing, and I'm doing insane damage to the boss. I will say this Trank I'm really unsure about, and there's probably better times to Trank. I'm just not sure where to do that. Obviously, the easy answer is to do it for the knockback that happens in a few seconds. The problem is that the knockback is immediately followed by bombs. So if I were to immune the knockback in melee, there's a chance the bombs could spawn in melee, which would pretty much instantly kill all of the melee. I could potentially walk out towards where this Jeeves is and Trank early from here and immune the knockback that way. I didn't really think about that until later on. After kind of the kill. It may work, it may not. But what I really don't want to have happen is Trank immune in melee, and then these bombs spawn in melee, right? That would be the worst case situation. We would be wiping because they targeted me. In here, I'm just regrowthing people as much as possible to prevent deaths. You'll even see, right? Another benefit to my ramp timing is that this is the end of the phase, and I still have full hots up, right? Just from luxury and soil and from all that shit. So, I really like my ramp, right? We're in a lot of danger. I'm doing good damage to the boss. The phase is about to end, and I still have full hots up, right? So I'm at the hardest moment of the fight, I'm doing the most healing. And if I were to have ramped 10, 15 seconds earlier, that's great, but I don't get one at the end of the fight, which is good for damage. And I don't think we killed this boss if we did not have my damage from that extra ramp. If you look at the log, you'll see that I did about, I think it was 2 million damage to the boss in the last 30 seconds, and I didn't even get a full Nature's Vigil off, right? But Nature's Vigil is so good that you can just output that much, right, with the ramps. So that's why I like my timings. You'll see end of the fight here, last 15%. I'm just rejuving as many people as possible. I'm just trying to get this ramp to be as good as possible for damage, right? I don't even care about healing, and you'll see this knockback is the last time we take any damage, right? So I Convoke, I Flourish instantly. I don't care about wasting my Convoke Flourish proc. I just want the damage, right? So I press it so I get my Nature's Vigil up, and then I'm just going to blast the boss with Regrowth, and this ends up doing 2 million damage in the short time, right? I think it was like 20 seconds, so not even full duration. I also calm at this point because I'm doing this healing. This healing will just get sucked up naturally by my healing. I tell the healers like just pump DPS, pump DPS. No one's gonna die because I'm doing infinite healing, right? So it ends and then I'm just spamming regrowths, and you'll see as well. We hit enrage, right? The boss is enraging when we kill it. So if I don't do this extra 2 million damage, there's a good argument to be made that maybe we don't kill the boss, right? It definitely would have been close. This tick kills most people. There's a few of us left. If this boss had 2 million more HP, would we have killed it? I think there's probably a good chance, but in your situation, right? Maybe that tick killed everyone, and there's like 2 or 3 people alive, right? And maybe that damage, the boss is a little bit higher, and it like rots to death, right? With like only 2 or 3 people alive, then your damage matters a lot more than my damage. And I think getting in that extra flourish is just so good. You see it about 16, 17 seconds of flourish or of Nature's Vigil value there, and I did 2 million damage, so it's quite insane. Or it was close to 2 million. There's definitely not a small amount in this Nature's Vigil alone, right? So I think you get 2 really good uses in the last phase. Specifically, I think that this use is insane. I think it carries this part of the fight. We stay alive, and then it also, again, you could ramp later, right? Like, you could ramp right here, but I still have full hots out, right? I'm still doing a lot of healing. I don't really care if I have full hots out when we go down here, right? Going down here, these hots are useless for me. So if I have some left over from the ramp, it just doesn't matter if downstairs people have hots, right? I still have hots out here, and then they're falling off now, right? Rather than falling off when we're downstairs. So I really am happy with my timings. I really think they're good. You could probably play around with them slightly, but that's at least my thought process and why I did them. In the description, I'll link the log and some of my socials as well as my coaching. I'll also link my Discord, so if you have any questions, you can always message me on Discord. And I appreciate you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys for making it this far, and then hopefully you got some tips or some ideas of how you can play the fight when you head to Mythic. Best of luck on your guys' prog and your kills.